Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're breaking down the source material on a conflict that, honestly, almost brought the entire world to its knees. We're talking about the 2026 Iran War.
So, it all kicked off on one single day, February 28th, 2026. And get this, it was the first day of Ramadan. Out of nowhere, a surprise attack just completely shattered what little peace there was and lit the fuse on a massive new war in the Middle East.
You know, the first shot fired in this war, it wasn't on some remote battlefield. No, it was a decapitation strike, right in the heart of Tehran. A joint U.S.-Israeli attack took out the highest authority in Iran, the Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. Just like that.
And this whole thing, this absolutely stunning attack, was the core of a U.S.-Israeli campaign. They even gave it a code name that, you gotta admit, fits the audacity of it all. Operation Epic Fury. The whole point was maximum shock and awe, right? Hitting Iran's leadership when they least expected it.
But here's where it gets really interesting. If you ask why they did it, well, the answer kind of depends on who you asked and when. The Trump administration threw out a bunch of different reasons. One day it was to stop an imminent threat. The next it was about taking out Iran's missile program or preventing a nuke. At one point, Trump himself basically said the goal was just straight-up regime change. It really makes you wonder, you know? Was the story just shifting to fit the audience, or were they not even on the same page behind the scenes?
So you gotta be asking, how in the world did we get here? How does a region that's supposedly this close to a peace deal just completely implode into an all-out war? Well, the lead-up was messy. It was this crazy mix of massive protests, military muscle flexing, and some really high-stakes backroom deals.
Okay, look at this timeline, because it just doesn't seem to add up, right? On one hand, you've got the U.S. pulling off its biggest military buildup in the Middle East since the Iraq invasion back in '03. But at the exact same time, you've got diplomats sitting in Oman, trying to hash out a nuclear deal. It's like they were on two completely separate tracks, one barreling towards war, while the other was desperately trying to hit the brakes and find peace.
And this is just incredible. The day before the bombs started falling, Oman's top negotiator comes out and announces a breakthrough. He's on record saying he thought a historic agreement was right around the corner. His exact words were filled with so much hope. He said peace was within reach.
Wow. But peace wasn't in the cards. Not even close. Instead, after their leader was assassinated, Iran's response was, well, it was fast, it was huge, and they didn't seem to care who got caught in the crossfire. The whole Middle East was about to go up in flames.
So Iran called its retaliation Operation True Promise IV. That number IV is a big deal, right? It's a signal. They're saying this isn't new, this is just the next chapter. But the scale this time, totally unprecedented. We're talking hundreds of drones and ballistic missiles lighting up the sky. And just look at this list of targets. It really shows you the sheer scale of their counterpunch. They didn't just go after Israel and the US. Nope. They hit out at any country in the region that had American troops. It basically turned the whole area into a free-fire zone. It was a terrifying way to show everyone just how far their weapons could reach. So while all this physical destruction is happening, there's another war going on, a war of information. Take a look at this table. The human cost of those first strikes was obviously huge, but the actual numbers, they're all over the place. Iran says one thing, the US and Israel say another, and human rights groups have a different number entirely. It's a classic case of the truth being the first casualty of war. Look, there was no way a conflict like this was going to stay contained in the Middle East. Not a chance. The impact started spreading like a shockwave, instantly hitting the global economy and lighting up other conflicts that had been quiet for a while. So what did Iran do? They went right for the world's economic jugular. They shut down the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, this is a tiny little waterway, but a huge chunk of the world's oil has to pass through it. By closing it, they caused what the International Energy Agency literally called the biggest supply disruption in history, ever. And here's what that looks like in plain numbers. This chart just says it all, doesn't it? That's the economic shockwave right there. Oil prices didn't just creep up, they shot through the roof. And that has immediate, real-world consequences for all of us, for businesses, for the price you pay at the pump, all over the globe.
So on top of the economic crisis, the military situation gets even worse. Iran's most powerful ally in the region, Hezbollah, jumped into the fight right away. They unleashed this massive storm of rockets into northern Israel, and just like that, a whole new, brutal front opened up. This became the 2026 Lebanon War.
But you know, as bad as all that sounds, the scariest part hadn't even happened yet. About 3 weeks into the fighting, things escalated. And they escalated to a point that made the entire planet hold its breath.
On March 21st, Iranian missiles hit the Israeli town of Dimona. Now, this wasn't just some random spot on the map. Dimona is where Israel keeps its biggest secret. It's home to the Shimon Peres Negev Nuclear Research Center. This is basically the heart of Israel's unofficial, unacknowledged nuclear program. So what happens if one of those missiles gets a direct hit on the reactor? Well, you'd unleash this, ionizing radiation. It's completely invisible, but it's a killer. The best way to think about it is like microscopic bullets of pure energy, just ripping through your body at a cellular level, tearing your DNA apart. It's a radiological nightmare that attacks the very code of life itself.
And suddenly that became the terrifying question hanging over everyone's head. With both sides now targeting nuclear sites, all the old rules of war were just gone, thrown out the window. You have a conflict that started with a single assassination and spiraled to the absolute brink of a nuclear disaster. So, how does a war like that end? That's the question that, to this day, nobody has a good answer for.